Yeah, I guess. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear us now?
Yes,
I'm good.
Perfect. To get you up to speed, we kicked off the meeting. It was called to order at 6:33. The reminders for the public to please raise your hand via Zoom or put questions in the Q&A feature and I'll identify you to speak. Also, we give a reminder that while this is a public meeting that will discuss ULURP items, the public hearings on those items will not take place today, will take place at a later date that will announce it shortly. With that, Alec is going to be taking minutes and Brendan is taking roll call.
Yeah, so Majid Abdul-Samad is present. Victoria Benatar isn't with us tonight. Jim Collins.
Here.
Alec Militic.
Present.
Rich Mintz.
Present.
Larry Shire.
Present.
Sandra Sharon.
Present.
Heidi Simon.
present.
Susan Steinberg.
Present.
Mark Thompson.
Present.
Gabe Turzo.
Present.
Spira.
Present.
Kathy Warren.
Great, thank you. And Larry, good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're feeling good. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there's no objection, we'll adopt the agenda as displayed. If there are any objections, please raise your hand. Seeing none, the agenda for tonight is adopted. The meeting minutes for the May 14th meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there's no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, please raise your hands. Seeing none, meeting minutes from May 14th are adopted and they will soon be available on the CB6 website. All right, quick ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members who are here in person, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand. I'll identify you to speak. Committee members unable to attending in Zoom, please again raise your hand using the Zoom feature and I'll identify you to speak. It's extremely important that one person speaks at a time so members of the public who are watching at home can understand what's happening. And the chat function via Zoom is only used for technical issues, not for committee business. And you can state topics that have already been stated for the record, such as an email that's been stated aloud for the record. Yeah. All right. With that, let's jump in. We have a packed agenda. Thank you for everybody who's attending today. And our first item is a presentation by the New York City Economic Development Corporation on the proposed United Nations Esplanade Greenway project.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You want me? Is there a better way that I could?
This is fine. The speakers here.
The speakers there.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I think I'll just kick it off because Tara was our government relation person. She's stuck in the subway, so I just like to use the price. So my name is Shakir Opel, who will be within the capital program at EDC. Christine here to introduce the project to the community board.
Sound is not good.
If you can speak up a little bit or else we do have a podium and a microphone. So either one works. Either speak up or.
All right, I'll just speak up. So my name is Shakir. I'm the vice president of the capital program at EDC.
Can't hear him.
Sorry. You can ask you to sit there, maybe.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Wonderful.
Yeah, my name is Shakir Okel. I'm the vice president within the capital program at EDC. I'm representing the UN Esplanade project. Tara, who is a government communication person, she's stuck in the subway as other people. So I think this project is more like a continuation of the Greenway initiative that we've all seen with the East Midtown Greenway that we just opened. So we just want to kind of introduce the project to you where we are. And
Could you please speak a little slower? It's hard to hear. I'm sorry. Yeah.
no problem.
Don't start. Thank you.
So again, just reintroducing this project to the community, knowing that this project has been a long-standing kind of initiative of successive mayors. So it's our first. We just started design. Want to kind of introduce the project to you, and then we're back to you like in the fall. So we have folks from Parks Department, DOT. And some of them might be on their way. And then consultant AECOM will do the presentation, and then we'll fill in whatever other information you have. And at the end of the day, we'll have time for questions.
Great, thank you.
Great, next slide, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Valeria. I'm with the ACOM consultant team and just briefly going through the agenda for the presentation today. We're gonna go through the project team, then we're gonna jump into a brief project background and overview. We're then gonna hand it over to our consultant for the public art process, and we're gonna close it down with a Q&A session at the end. Next slide, please. So as Shakira just mentioned, the implementing agency for this project is NYC EDC, Economic Development Corporation. And we're working together along with the partner agencies, which are NYC DOT and Parks. On the consultant side, the prime consultant is ACOM, and we're collaborating with the community engagement consultant is Melissa Johnson Associates, MJA, and our public art consultant is VIA. Next slide, please. So this project, the East Midtown Waterfront, it is part of a broader vision that the city has to close the loop through the Manhattan Waterfront Greenway. The greenways are this project that provides waterfront access to residents. And this vision to close the loop is to provide a continuous waterfront space all across Manhattan. So not only will it provide a broader network of green and open space throughout Manhattan's waterfront, but we are also securing safe ridership and safe spaces for both pedestrians and cyclists. In the current existing greenway, we see an average of over 10K daily riders. So it is important to ensure that this is all along connected and that it is safe for all. Next slide, please. So taking a look at the past, as Shakira just mentioned, the project team has been here before. This is a long-standing project. Over a decade ago, around 2013, the project team worked with the local community to identify the master plan and what the objectives of the projects along the master plan should comply with. So the conversations range from everything on what type of programming the projects should have or should integrate, as well as where people that utilize the project are coming from. So there was multiple series of community meetings with different type of activities in which we could best understand what type of users are coming in and what type of programming could be best integrated within these series of projects. Next slide, please. So taking an overview of where the East Midtown Waterfront projects or the progress is at, as I previously mentioned, this was kicked off back in 2013, over a decade ago, where the city started to plan or started to work with this master plan for the East Midtown Waterfronts. Once the master plan started to be carried into construction, there was two main project drivers that are already built. So one of them being Waterside Pier, which is now called New Wave Pier, and this was finalized around 2021. And then the city started to construct and to build the East Midtown Greenway, which is that construction started back in 2021, and it opened late last year, early this year. I think a lot of you might be familiar. And now we're jumping in with the third project of the sequence of the master plan, which is the United Nations Esplanade. Next slide, please. So taking an overview of the site and where this project actually sits, it is actually the missing link between the two projects that were just mentioned. It expands from 41st Street on the south all the way to 53rd Street on the north. And it provides this missing link that is currently missing within the two projects. The proposed upland connection, which is really important because it's where we provide access from pedestrians, not only from the linking projects, but also from the inland, is currently being proposed at 48th Street. And it'll have a landing node or an area where the esplanade becomes a little bit wider on 48th Street. The existing node within the East Midtown Greenway is on 53rd Street, which is connected to the upland connection, and New Wave Pier in the south, it is all overall connected to the shoreline. So we have some images of the existing projects, and a very important component of the UN Esplanade is that almost half of the project runs right in front of the United Nations campus. Next slide, please. And just some goals or the overall project vision for the entire master plan, not just for the UN Esplanade, is not only taking a look of maximizing the locations along the waterfront, providing safety for both pedestrians and cyclists, but we're also taking into consideration instances of sustainability, for instance, the sea level rise, and how we need to provide a design that complies with appropriate elevation for the upcoming sea level, as well as material selection and such. This is a rendering actually done in 2013 when we were working with the master plan. And as you can see, we pulled in some of the components and it already looks reflected within the East Manhattan Greenway that got built. You know, we have bike lane on one side, we have the pedestrian right of way on the other, and we have planting buffers along with other programming along the entirety of the Esplanade. Next slide, please. And now I'm gonna hand it over to Via, our public art consultant, to talk a little bit more about the selection process.
Hi. Sure. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Blumenfeld. I'm with Via Partnership, and we were the consultants who did the artist selection process for the East Midtown Greenway. And we're very excited to be joining the team working on the UN Esplanade Public Art Project. Currently, we will be using the same community-based artist selection process that we used for the East Midtown Greenway for this project as well. And currently, we are building a list of artists that we would like to invite to respond to the request for qualifications. We're specifically looking for artists that have experience working with design teams and working on large-scale infrastructure projects. And we invite you to share any recommendations of artists that you may have that you think should be on that list. We are also, you can see on this slide that we are working with 2 artists or selection committees to support the selection process. One is the Artist Selection Committee, the other is the Stakeholder Advisory Committee. And we are looking for recommendations for representatives from CB6 who would like to serve on these committees. And if you can move to the next slide, it includes an email address where you can send your recommendations and nominations for those committees. And of course, self-nominations for the committees are welcome, as well as nominations of others. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Jess.
Next slide. All right, hi, everyone. My name is Jessie Cohen. I'm with Melissa Johnson Associates, and we are leading the community engagement for this project. So here we just kind of want to give a snapshot of what the community engagement process will look like throughout the design. So each point when we will come to CB6, these are all critical junctures in the design process. So here we're having an introductory meeting, having a chance to explain the project to everyone once again. We'll also have another presentation when we reach the conceptual design, preliminary design, and again, at final design. And sort of right before each of these steps, we'll also be having meetings with the general public, so that not only are we bringing information to the community, but we're also providing opportunities for the public to ask us questions, clarify anything that's not clear, and we can make sure that at each step, we're incorporating community feedback and incorporating into the design as best as we can. 2 other things I just want to call out here. Workshops are an important part of our engagement in the beginning. They're a really great opportunity for us to not only sit in a room and give information, but walk the site or as close as we can be and discuss more targeted aspects of the design, hopefully inspire more thought and feedback actually by being on the site. And the second item I just want to mention are pop-up information sessions, which are an opportunity for us to not only ask the community to come to our meetings, but we're meeting people where they are. So that can look like having a pop-up in a park or a community center that's in the area, so that, you know, if it's not convenient for someone to come to a public meeting, we are going to meet people who live in the area where they are.
Great. Thank you.
Next slide, I think. Yeah, sorry. The last slide, Sarah, I know you're not here. I don't know if you want to moderate. You now have a couple minutes for brief Q&A. If you wanna.
Yeah, hi everyone, Tara Doss, also with EDC, Government Communications.
Yeah, okay. All right, Beneath committee, you have to,
Not a question, just a comment. A friend and I were walking the East Midtown Greenway. It was absolutely delightful and I really can't wait for the rest of it to be finished. We were so sorry to have to get off, I think. Around 50. So I'm really looking forward to the completion of this.
I saw on your map that there's going to be a midpoint land access at 48th, if I remember.
Yes.
Is that going to be step free?
Yes, it's all
fully
gonna be,
accessible?
it's gonna be fully accessible. It's gonna be, all the project, all the Esplanade is gonna be fully accessible, not only through the upland connection, but also the connections north and south to the Gibson projects.
thank you. Jim?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, have you interfaced at all with the diplomatic security service or the US Secret Service? Because they're always crazy about that that UN area. They were several years ago when this topic first came up, and also I guess NYPD.
So we've started engagement with the UN folks, and most of the initial.
I'm sorry?
So we've started conversation with the UN folks, and so we'll continue the conversation with them. They know where we are in terms of design and all of that. So the goal is to continue to have conversation with them, understanding their security challenges and all of that. So that will be considered as part of the design.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah.
Larry?
Yes. Why does this design process drag on for a year and a half? Isn't there anything that's already been proposed that might be in the works that you can start with?
I think that's a good question. I think what goes into design is there's a lot of structures, so we have to size them appropriately. There's also permitting that needs to go through the permitting agencies, the Army Corps, all of that. That takes time. Part of it is also making sure that we're carrying the community along in terms of what we're designing. Those things are what takes time to get established with everyone before we go into construction.
Got it. So looking at the timeline you had, actually, Brendan, can we go back to that slide? You had introductory, then preliminary design. Does that mean next time we meet conceptual design? Because I see only spring. Does that mean next time we meet in August, you're gonna show, what are these in terms of months? What are we seeing in each one of those?
Yes, currently the introduction would be summer, so in the fall, we would come back and present the conceptual design.
Got it. So this counts as introduction, and next
This is
time
the
we talk in
introduction.
August,
Yes,
it is
yes.
conceptual. Okay,
So the conceptual design, that's when some of the ideas that come up in the first workshop are then sort of reworked.
got it.
So huge fan, very supportive. Speaking of timelines, do we know if this is going to be design build or design bid build, or is it too soon to tell?
It is design, build.
Right, I have one last question. You mentioned, one of the slides showed one of the visions, environmental resiliency and all that. How does the FDR factor in this? Understanding that the segment that recently opened, a few months back, we had the FDR flooded, the segment was fine. So is the FDR, the safety of the FDR factored here?
So I can take that. So the project isn't protecting the FDR. The FDR is the FDR. But the project itself would be, the sea level rise will be considered for the design of the project itself. So I know where you're going, but it's not really protecting the FDR. That's not the goal of the project.
Got it. Are there other projects in the work now? Like this is multi-million-dollar infrastructure investment in this segment that probably not going to be another for a few years. So is there something else in the works that EDC is?
Not that I know about at EDC. I know the city has, a lot of good ideas about like protecting the shore. And they started from kind of like from down south. So perhaps the city has vision to do something in the future, but I don't know, right now.
Got it.
For EDC scope, no, but there may be other things that we can speak to.
Got it. Okay, so next time we chat, is there a chance that you can get us an update about whether any other agencies that EDC is coordinating with about putting the DR? Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I know this is a concept design, but with the rise of e-bikes and things and bikes being rushed faster through, we are just looking at that intersection where the pedestrians are coming off the ramp and then trying to get to the water side. I think there's gonna need to be some more detail put to how that works out.
That's taken.
Yes, completely agree. That's kind of one of the main issues that we're working with in the intersections, and we're working with our civil team to really understand what are the offsets and all the signage that we might need to provide safe intersections.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other questions, comments, folks here or the public? Sammy?
I was just wondering when the first meeting is, if you could go back to your schedule.
Looks like it
During the summer that we have. We don't have anything scheduled yet, but we'll reach out.
Did the workshop not happen? Because it looks like it's left of the introduction.
Yeah, it was a
Okay,
little skew, so no, I haven't.
and it's not scheduled.
Okay, seeing no other, oh, Larry, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, it's just another question about access points. You have 48th Street. Is there going to be anything near 42nd Street or by the Soloviev or Soloviev property?
We currently just have the proposed upland connection on 48th, but the Esplanade the concept design is being flexible enough to, at some point, if needed, provide another upland connection, but at the moment, we only have the 48th Street connection.
So where's the next connection to the north and south from there?
The connection at 53rd Street with EMG and at 41st Street with Newark Pier.
Okay, all right. But New Wave Pier has a street connection, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's at 35th Street.
Oh,
37th Street.
Yeah, so what you're asking is, near the top of New Wave Pier, is there a connection? And it looks like there isn't.
There isn't at this moment.
Yeah. That would probably be good, especially given that something might be built there. But this is not our idea session, this is just our listening session. We can give you an idea in the next meeting.
Yes. So I'll actually extend that to Elaine and Scott for your questions. Thank you for these. This sounds like a conversation about the conceptual design, so tune in next meeting. Okay, with that, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for that. All right. Knowing we're on schedule, we're gonna jump straight to the next item. Next item on the agenda is a private developer in New York City, again, EDC, ULURP application to facilitate the development of a new 270-foot tall, approximately 400 and so square foot commercial life science building called Innovation East. The details of that were shared, so I'm gonna hold off until folks start presenting.
The back, so the presenters can have.
Yeah. Yes, Brendan, can we pull this up, please?
Sure.
And Brendan, if you want to hide the window on top, I can see here who's raising their hand. Go to, yeah, there you go. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us. So I'm going to kick us off. I'm Sue Rosenthal. I'm with the New York City Economic Development Corporation, and I lead the effort for New York City for Lifestyle NYC.
Sue, sorry, can you speak louder? We can't hear you in the back.
Yes,
Thank you.
I will try. Tell me if I'm not loud enough. I've been at EDC now for a little over 5 years. I come from industry. I was at Pfizer just down the street for many years. doing drug development and business development to advance medicines. And I thought it would be really important today to start by actually giving perspective of what is life sciences? How do we make this relevant for everybody who has access to this industry? And life sciences touches us all. I think everyone can think of themselves, their family members, their loved ones, their friends, and how much we actually have advanced our life expectancy in humanity using life sciences. The majority of life expectancy growth over the last century has come from life sciences, from the immunizations that we use, from the improvements in medicine, from the improvements in nutrition. And so this is personal for all of us. I know for me, it's personal for my family and for my loved ones. And I hope that as you're thinking about what we're talking about today, you can think of how this may advance and improve your lives and your family and loved ones' lives. If you go to the next slide, there's a really wide range of what is life sciences. It really is the combination of biology and technology to advance humanity. And this range is everything from the Advil that you might take to help a headache someday, or the chemotherapy that your loved one may use to fight cancer. This is everything from, you think of the diagnostics as you think of managing your cholesterol, but also as you think of testing for COVID. And even the products that we're now using, we're seeing more use of lab-based biology. I think of Impossible Burger and plant-based foods as an advancement of life sciences. This is really ultimately, again, for us to live longer lives and better quality lives. And quite frankly, a lot of life sciences happens in New York City in basic research now. Unfortunately, over the years, a lot of it has had to leave New York City to come to the market. I think of the research that's happened at Columbia. There's a Nobel laureate, Richard Axel, who invented and did research that has led to Humira for rheumatoid arthritis, to Xolair for asthma, I'm now blanking on the name of the drug for multiple sclerosis. But there's a number of these medicines that have come to market based on the research that started in New York City, but then the industry that actually had to leave New York City to grow and thrive. And so really what we're talking about today is let's take the great work of the New York community and bring it forward to actually advance not only the science, but the job creation and the economic opportunity for New Yorkers as well. So with that, I'd also like to share, if you go to the next slide, that opportunity. Life sciences jobs, apologies for the logo at the top. That should say Life Sci NYC. But life sciences is a great source of jobs and high quality jobs. And you may be thinking to yourself, oh, this is for a PhD or an MD. Well, I'd like to make sure to share that this is actually for many types of backgrounds, many types of education. I think to when I was on the development teams at Pfizer, we'd have a team of 20 people, maybe half were some form of technical role, and the other half was market research, was operations, was finance, was admin and operations for the team and for the whole effort. There are many, many roles that do not necessarily require advanced degrees. And while we're in early days of building in New York City, you can see on the slide for every one role, technical role, there are 3 estimated to be non-technical. And that is really for a broad range of skills. And so as we launched Life Sci NYC back in 2016, we thought to ourselves, how do we diversify the jobs of New York City into industries that draw on our strengths? And life sciences was one of them. So our goal is really to unlock this opportunity for the city, for all the different communities of the city. And that requires certain building blocks to do that. If you go to the next slide, we have been focused on the start for the industry, and we've had some successes to date. Really, in order to tap this opportunity as much as we can, we need to build clusters. Clusters are central locations for an industry, and it's a really great opportunity to help the industry, to help the community. And we are drawing on some successes that we're already seeing in Kips Bay. We know that we have NYU Langone here. We have the Alexandria Center with a couple of buildings for life sciences that have been quite active in this space. And we also have Deerfield's Cure, which is a little to the left on the map. That is of a 12-floor building, 11 of them are occupied now with companies and with activity and incubators. So this is the start. Kips Bay, with its proximity to NYU and the various institutions going up First Avenue, presents an incredible opportunity to be the leading cluster for the industry. And that will, present opportunity for people starting their career in life sciences and people growing their career. So we have a vision, as we talk to you about Innovation East and Spark Kips Bay today, you can imagine the intern at CUNY, going from their classroom to their internship in one of these buildings, working for a company. You could imagine the founder who is starting their company, and that founder meeting with their investors or meeting with other companies in this ecosystem as well. And you can imagine the businesses that will then sprout as a result of this in the local community. And so historically, the question of why now? Well, we're seeing growth in life sciences. We're seeing the city start to grow in a way that before the pandemic, we did a count and there were fewer than 150 companies in New York in life sciences. Within the last year, we've measured and we're over 600. So we've now quadrupled the amount of life sciences activity in the city. We've also achieved over 19,000 jobs, which is fantastic, but it's just the start. If I were to compare to Cambridge, which has over 20 million square feet of space, they also have over 85,000 jobs in that location. And why can't we as a city, with the strengths of our institutions, achieve something like that? And so this is the right time for it, seeing the trajectory we are on and the opportunity that we can yield for the broader community. And so the last thing I'll say is that the opportunity is there. We know the market is ripe for it. We've seen quite a bit of funding catalyzed. We are the top of the top 3 NIH funded cities in the country. And we've seen quite a bit of funding capitalized over the last year. So the question that we are trying to solve for is how do we make sure that science that used to leave the city now stays here and has an opportunity to grow? So with that, I'm here for questions as well, but I'm going to hand it over to Ben and the team at Taconic to share more about Innovation East, and very happy to take questions as we go through it later on.
Great, thanks, Sue. That's great context and a great segue. My name's Ben Backash from Taconic Partners, forgive the graphical issues we're having. I'm joined by Melissa Sarko of Eniad Architects and Ellen Lehman from Fried Frank. I'm happy to be back talking about Innovation East, proposed new life science building at 455 First Avenue. Please. So I'll reintroduce the project partners. The New York City Economic Development Corporation, who you just heard from. Innovation East is contributing to the broader life science initiative that we just discussed. Taconic Partners and Elevate Research Properties. We are developers of commercial life science buildings here in New York. Our partners at Divco West, who are developers of leading life science ecosystems nationally, including here in New York. The NYU Grossman School of Medicine, they will be our anchor tenant. So this team was selected by EDC to develop a world-class commercial life science facility on the site of the current public health lab. Slide, please. So when we made our initial project presentation, I think that was in January, we had just started our community outreach. We've done a ton since then. We're going to give you an update on that, on the timeline of the project, an overview of the project, a summary of the zoning actions that we'll go through, and then an update on our workforce development and educational programming efforts. So to start with community engagement and the timeline, next slide, please. Oops, one slide ahead. So here you see a list of some of the organizations we have met with to date. We intend to continue to engage with them throughout the ULURP process and beyond. We've had really great dialogues and gotten some great feedback. Okay, so what we've heard so far, we've heard that new F&B space on First Avenue will meet a community need. We've heard that transparent, well-lit ground floor facades create a welcoming feel along First Avenue, 26th Street, and 27th Street. There's been an optimism for improved safety along 27th Street, which right now is not a great place to be. We've heard a preference for the city bike dock to remain near the bike path on 27th and 1st. And then we've had some questions about how the building relates to the park to the west, as well as a request for design sensitivity on the Mount Carmel facade of the building. On the building's program and the life science use, we've heard an enthusiasm for job creation and educational opportunities. We've heard questions about the future market demand in the life science sector, which I think Sue just put some great context to. We've heard a real interest in student educational opportunities and exposure to life sciences, as well as an acknowledgement that there's public meeting spaces needed in this area. On process, neighbors have asked us about construction timeline, logistics, and the community board has asked us some clarifying questions about setback waivers. Slide, please. So on the project timeline, we were certified into ULURP today by DCP, one step closer to realizing the city's long-term plan to create a new public health lab in Harlem, and a modern laboratory space here at 455 First Avenue. The development's in keeping with the community board's 197A plan, which acknowledges the importance of health and sciences on First Avenue. Following the conclusion of ULURP, the public health lab, which currently is on the site, will be relocated to the new purpose-built facility. That'll be in 2026, after which we could demolish the existing building and start construction of the new building, completing in about 2030.
Sorry to interrupt. Brendan, do you mind refreshing? Something crazy is happening with the slides.
Yeah, and we sent 2 files. I don't know if it's worth trying. I don't know if this is the PowerPoint or the PDF.
This is the PowerPoint.
Do you want to try the PDF or do you want me to use a thumb drive? There's definitely some distortion happening, which
Yeah,
we're
some
happy
text
to
is
muddle
not legible.
through, but.
Do you mind just try refreshing, or if you have the PDF, can we pull that up?
I can try the PDF.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
This particular computer doesn't have Adobe, that's the one slight issue.
Even the PowerPoint didn't look like that on
You
there.
should be able to open it in Chrome.
Just a moment.
You didn't mean these texts. So look at that.
It's just, at some point, the graphic may impact our ability to share relevant information. Thank you for
Go to
trying.
slide 12.
Slide 12, okay, just a moment.
Much better, yeah. Yeah.
Actually, can we look at the timeline just one more time for folks?
Now, let me also see if I can, like there we go.
Yeah, I'll just do full screen here.
Let me see if I can find a full screen type
I
of.
think it's a Control F for this.
We'll try right clicking.
No.
I'm sure it's somewhere.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Well done.
There we go.
Yay,
Excellent.
thank you.
We can just move the text box so folks can see the timeline and feel free to carry on.
Okay. So the blue signifies where we are, which is being certified into ULURP and continuing our community engagement. 2026, the new public health lab in Harlem will be complete, at which point they'll relocate there. We can demolish the existing building, start construction of the new building following, with completion slated for 2030 approximately. Next slide, please. So we'll just give a bit of an overview about the project as a refresher. I know we've talked about it, but so let's freshen our minds. If we go to the next slide, please. So Innovation East, which you see here outlined in black, will advance the city's goals to grow the life science sector along First Avenue. It'll replace the outmoded public health building, which sits there today, built in the mid-60s, very much in a state of disrepair and not suitable for modern lab usage. The new building will deliver first-class space for commercial life science use for companies in varying stages of development, as well as the NYU Grossman School of Medicine, all the while fostering job training and creation. With that, Melissa will talk through some of the specifics of the building.
Thank you. So just as a reminder, this is the existing public health lab that Ben mentioned. It occupies the site currently. It is in the process of being relocated to a purpose-built facility in Harlem to better support their scientific mission. And this is, the facility was built in the 60s and is just no longer really suited to meet modern life science needs. So if you go to the next slide. So Innovation East will take the place of that building. It will occupy a pivotal location in the First Avenue Health and Sciences corridor, right on First Avenue between 26th and 27th Streets.
Some of our immediate neighbors include Bellevue Hospital to the east, the 344 East 28th Street residences, and the Carmel Place micro units are our direct neighbors to the north. South of the site is the NYU School of Nursing, and then to the southeast is the CUNY Brookdale campus, which is the future home of the Spark campus, which we'll be hearing about next. A few other things to point out is that the 27th Street pedestrian way is directly north of our site, and then that connects directly to Bellevue South Park, which is west. Next. So the Innovation East will deliver over 500,000 square feet of new world-class life science space to the New York City market. It will include flexible floor plates that support tenants at multiple scales, including startups, larger footprints for more established research companies, as well as the entrepreneurial research labs for the NYU Grossman School of Medicine. There will be transparent and active ground floor facades and programming that will improve the pedestrian realm and then relate back to the broader life science community. The building massing and design we're considering in terms of the context, the immediate neighborhood and the community context, but also planning for this purpose-built life science environment. So if you go to the next slide.
Can I ask what orientation we're looking at it from?
Oh, of course, sorry about that. So if you go back to that slide, this is a view on 26th Street, standing with like the CUNY Brookdale campus to your left, looking across First Avenue to the west.
Okay, thank you.
So designing for life sciences means that we consider, some very specialized environments and dimensional criteria for the project. So successful life science buildings have enhanced building systems with specialized infrastructure that translates into larger footprints for mechanical spaces and typically higher floor-to-floor heights than you might see in office buildings or residential buildings to support the laboratory air change requirements and specialized exhaust systems. And then the life science floor plates also have special requirements. This blow up of the plan at the bottom of the image shows some of the kind of fundamental relationships within the laboratory environment, which is planned on a rigorous 11-foot module. It has an ideal 33-foot minimum open bench dimension, which you can see on the right, and that includes space at laboratory benches where researchers are conducting experiments, and that's directly adjacent to write-up desks where they can record their findings. That space then is adjacent to a 22-foot zone of lab support, which is typically smaller enclosed spaces that have specialized equipment or environments. And then together that 55-foot lab dimension is kind of the minimum ideal dimension between the building core and the perimeter of the building. So if you go to the next slide, we've included a few photos that just show how those dimensional criteria look when built in a laboratory environment. Those critical dimensions allow the laboratories to be planned at high efficiency ratios. And efficient lab planning is important because it helps to offset what is otherwise like a high cost to develop and lease laboratory space, which allows tenants to optimize their square footage within the building and to more easily adapt to changing research or changing equipment. Those dimensions that we talked about also represent the ideal clearances that are required to maintain safe working conditions. They coordinate with modular equipment, so everything is on that 11-foot module. They're aligned with NIH space standards that are required for grant funding for scientific research, and they maintain the ideal programmatic relationships within that laboratory environment. The Innovation East floor plate, which is kind of shown diagrammatically there on the bottom right, has maintained that 55-foot ideal dimension around the entire perimeter of the floor plate, which allows any portion of the floor to be used for laboratories. So if you go to the next slide, please. That flexibility is really important because we're planning for multiple tenant sizes and configurations. These diagrams show kind of theoretical test fits for different size tenants from a small, medium, and large size tenant configuration. That laboratory zone that we were looking at in a little bit more detail is shown here in blue. And then in yellow are some of the supporting offices and computational spaces that kind of go hand in hand with a life science tenant fit out. So we can go to the next slide. And it goes without saying that having that flexibility, to have different size tenants kind of goes to the point of like wanting to grow, the life sciences here in New York City. So giving those smaller companies a place where they can mature and have a place to stay here in New York City. Just to go back to some of the infrastructure requirements for a life science building, because a lot of this informed, the dimensional criteria, the infrastructure requirements all informed our ULURP actions. Resiliency and redundancy is critical for research because researchers need to maintain their research continuity in the event of natural or other disasters. There's often redundant systems or types of systems that require larger footprints. We've established on the project a design flood elevation that takes into consideration climate change. So as a result of that, all critical infrastructure supporting the research environment is raised above that design flood elevation, which puts more emphasis on the ground floor, the second floor, and then the upper mechanical spaces to support mechanical equipment that sometimes you might see otherwise located below grade, where in this case it could be susceptible to flooding. And then the project also includes a number of energy efficiency measures, some of which can take up additional floor footprints within the building, including a fully electric central plant, which will help New York City with its transition from fossil fuels. Next. So we've included a couple of comparisons in this presentation showing the existing public health lab, which is on the left, which as noted is kind of outdated for modern life sciences, and then Innovation East, which is on the right, which incorporates those kind of critical planning dimensions and the infrastructure required for a modern commercial life science facility. We are looking at the massing of the building and relating it to both the larger institutional buildings, which make up the First Avenue corridor, but it's also comparable in height to many of its residential neighbors to the north and to the west. Next. So in thinking about the ground floor, we prioritized activation, transparency, and accessibility. The main building lobby is located mid-block. And then there are additional entrances for the tenant bike room and a retail cafe that can be accessed directly from the 27th Street pedestrian way. The retail cafe is approximately 5,000 square feet, which depending on the interior layout and the type of tenant could seat up to around 200 people. So it's a fairly sizable footprint in an area that really needs a food and beverage venue. There's the potential for additional seating, obviously, at the 27th Street pedestrian way as well. At the south side of the ground floor footprint, we have a 9,000 square foot life science multi-purpose space, which includes flexible meeting, training, and gathering space in support of some of the programs we're going to talk about shortly. And together, these types of programs will activate the ground floor and, improve the public realm of transparency and a more active environment. Next. So we've included a few views showing the improved public realm and how the ground floor is designed to integrate the building into the fabric of the neighborhood. This is a view from 27th Street, looking across First Avenue again to the west. And it shows the main building lobby mid-block, and then in the foreground is that neighborhood-centered retail cafe. Next. So it's our intent through this project to restore the pedestrian experience and the safety on 27th Street. In the existing conditions shown on the left, the extensive scaffolding and the blank facades have created safety concerns that we've heard from the community. The east side of 27th Street has a very active city bike installation, and then the west side is intermittently congested with illegally parked vehicles. So all of that is kind of preventing the pedestrian way from really having a pedestrian presence. Through Innovation East, the images on the right show our vision of how we can improve the pedestrian experience with active and well-lit facades, and the project team intends to work with the city to remove the parking and reposition the city bikes, although we understand that that's kind of, an ideal location for them. And all of this will help to improve the connection between Bellevue South Park and the First Avenue corridor with the strengthened pedestrian connection.
Is that the existing cafe still there in the Carmel Place building?
Yeah.
It is,
that's
yeah.
right.
There's a cafe. I think there's now a ping pong
Yeah.
venue as well. Next. So a few additional views of the existing conditions and our vision of the future condition. The images on the left are actually from around 10 years ago, before the scaffolding was installed, but it better shows, you know, the character of the building and the site, which really does include, you know, pretty tall opaque site walls. The building, you know, largely turns its back on the neighborhood. It doesn't have a lot of transparency or give you any sense of what's happening within the building. The images on the left also show some of the conditions along 26th Street, which includes, you know, on 26th Street alone, there's 2 separate locations for vehicular access points and loading dock access. And there's also a significant portion of the kind of site elements and equipment that is overbuilt past the property line by about 20 feet. So on the right side, you can see the additional space that gets returned to the 26th Street right of way once, you know, those encroachments are eliminated. And it also shows the extent of transparency and activation and how the views of that multi-purpose space at the corner, the south corner, has visibility to the entire First Avenue corridor and also has opportunities to put science on display and, you know, share with the community some of the exciting things that might be happening within the building itself. And so I'm gonna turn it over to Ellen Lehman, who's gonna walk through some of our zoning actions.
Next slide. And again. Okay, so the site today is located in an R8 district with a C25 commercial overlay district within 100 feet of First Avenue. The R8 district doesn't permit any commercial uses, including laboratories. The existing public health laboratory building on site predates current zoning and is non-conforming. So to facilitate the project, we are requesting 3 land use approvals. The first is a zoning map amendment from that R8 district to a C64 district. The C64 district would allow a range of commercial and institutional uses, including laboratories at a 10 FAR. The second is a zoning text amendment to map a mandatory inclusionary housing area on the site. Under the MIH program, anytime a site is rezoned to increase the residential FAR, MIH designation is required. So accordingly, we are adding that designation here, although there's no residential use proposed on site.
So you're saying that if the building were ever replaced by a residential building, there would be MIH requirement?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the final action is a special permit pursuant to section 74901, which allows bulk modifications specifically available to laboratory uses given their unique programmatic needs. And that special permit would allow modification to the setback requirements shown here in hatching. And that will allow for those 55-foot flexible floor plates that Melissa described. And I'll turn it back to Ben.
Great.
Actually, sorry to interrupt. Can you just clarify to folks the grade that they're looking at? Is this the proposed massing of the building or is this the envelope? What's the gray box they're looking at?
Right, so everything in gray is the proposed envelope of the building. So it would, the envelope would permit up to 255 feet as a base height, and then a total height of 270 feet after a setback.
Got it.
Excuse me, but you're saying it goes up to 265 feet on First Avenue? It's a gray box. It's a straight up wall.
Yes, so the envelope would be 255 feet around.
Your proposed building is not that.
Right, our illustrative building has a setback on First Avenue. The envelope would allow greater flexibility given the stage of design.
And so it's not actually gray. on this plot? If that, the gray is not your proposed building.
No, the gray is the proposed building envelope. If you can see kind of within the gray, there is an outline of a building. That's the current illustrative.
The dotted line, I think.
So, but everything in gray is the proposed envelope that would be allowed.
For the purpose of ULURP, yeah.
And that's the envelope, not the massing. And the blue line that's shown, that's the existing building height at 192. Yes?
Yes, that's the public health lab today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll just speak a little bit. We can go to the next slide, please. And one more, just a little bit about our workforce development and educational programming efforts. So Innovation East is going to stimulate the growth of life science companies and organizations, which together will employ about 1,000 individuals ranging in skill and education level. As Sue explained, there'll be more technical jobs. And then there'll be related jobs, business managers, operations folks, administrative assistants, building service workers. We're committed to active participation with MWB contractors during construction, as well as EDC's Hire NYC program during construction, as well as permitting. Slide, please. We'll be partnering with nonprofits, including the Lower East Side Employment Network, Hypothekids, Life Science Cares, and New York Bio, to effectuate both educational and workforce development programs to take place in the multi-purpose space, which we'll show you what that looks like. The idea is to connect local residents with the life sciences and related jobs, job training, education opportunities, as well as local K through 12 and college students with hands-on educational opportunities, networking and internship opportunities. Generally, the goal is to connect the local community with the life science community. Next slide, please. So this is the life science multi-purpose space that Melissa mentioned. It's approximately 9,000 square feet and provides an opportunity to connect the vibrant life science ecosystem with the broader community. We envision flexible meeting, training, and gathering space for building tenants, as well as our nonprofit partners to offer programs, including life science conferences, lectures, seminars, networking and career exposure events for students and other life science programs, job fairs, training for local residents, as well as programs that engage K through 12 students. The goal being to inspire the next generation of life science graduates.
Do you think maybe a community board might be able to hold a full board meeting in that space?
So we had talked about that when we met recently with leadership and, happy to review additional, what your needs are. Specifically, we do envision this being a robustly programmed space, right? We want it to be active. So happy to do that.
Ben, I just want to share two examples from the West End Labs building that's on the west side. So I think it was in April that there was a camp, it was a week of
With Hypothekids,
kids, where instead of spending their week at home with nothing to do, these students K through 12 were brought to West End Labs to do very hands-on activity for the week while they were on vacation.
Yeah.
So happy for you to share more on that. And then I'd love to share the example of Nucleate, also presenting college students that were essentially pitching their science, and they had the winners received checks to advance their science further. And that was across many different schools, many institutions. And I believe George Ankopoulos from Regeneron also spoke and gave a very inspiring speech about his personal story for life sciences. It was just a really interesting and standing room only room of students presenting their programs and getting funding from the work that Taconic was helping to set up.
Yep, so these are programs we've already kind of tested out in another one of our properties, and I'll say visiting and seeing when the spring break camp was going on, it was focused on engineering. And you saw middle school students really getting engaged and curious about what was going on. And that's the kind of thing we envision happening here. Next slide, please. So just to close out, we see Innovation East as providing significant community benefits through improving the public realm, fostering a vibrant life science ecosystem that's interconnected with the surrounding neighborhood, while creating quality jobs for a range of skills. Happy to take any questions.
Is there a timeline?
So we cannot start physical work until the existing public health lab relocates to Harlem, which will be in 2026, at which point we would demolish the existing building. So let's say it takes the year, and then start construction of the new building in about 27. Completion would be in approximately 2030.
Hi, a couple questions. I love the concept. New York City can and should be the global leader in life sciences. So I love the city making this effort. I am concerned a little bit about the health of the park and some of the setbacks you're requesting. We don't have a lot of green space here in Community Board 6. We are concerned with the next generation of trees in Bellevue Park. This life sciences corridor, you guys have expressed, EDC has expressed a lot of confidence that these spaces are gonna be rented, like 95% confidence. Are there any sort of exogenous shocks that could say alter that? Maybe say the Second Avenue subway being delayed or something like that, that could alter your calculus? And lastly, we just need some clarity. Is the city the landlord in this scenario, or is it gonna be like leased out to a general property?
Okay, I'm gonna take the second question first. So the building is approximately 40% already committed to by NYU, right? So that's from a leasing perspective, that's a huge boon to the development. The balance of the building will be marketed to companies at varying stages of development. As Sue mentioned, right, life science needs a lot of different things. It's not only one thing, although we're calling it one thing. There's the technology-oriented aspect, then the more science as we think about it. There's AI-driven life sciences, right? So there's a wide swath of companies, many of which probably don't even exist today that could take space in this building. So when you compare it to other clusters, as Sue described, we're really catching up with demand, not the other way around. On the park.
Can I add to
please.
that before you go to the park? 5 years ago, we had maybe 3 incubators in the city. It's depending on how you count it now, we have anywhere between 12 and 19. And they are starting to fill with companies. And so I gave the example of biolabs earlier. They have 36 companies at biolabs at NYU Langone right now. And the same Launch Labs at Alexandria has a number of companies. Those companies will need places to go once they grow out of those spaces, and we want them to stay in New York City. And I mentioned earlier that we are seeing a lot of funding get capitalized. In March, we did I'll call it a literature search of what was being published in articles, and just from doing a Google search, we counted $12 billion being put into fund life sciences companies. And so my fear, what keeps me up at night, is that we don't have places for companies to go, and that those companies end up going to other cities and other states because we don't have the spaces for them. So while we can't predict, I hope we don't have another pandemic anytime soon. Those things do hurt the city, and we hope that we are now working to become more resilient through them. But there is going to be hopefully a wave of innovation, looking at the NIH funding, the other federal funding sources, the VC funding. And it keeps me up at night that we won't be able to have those companies stay here.
Yeah, I mean, we love the confidence. We just wanted to look underneath the hood and see
Yeah,
what it's
of course.
based on, because it's a huge project.
Of course. Okay, back to the public spaces.
Okay, second, or I don't remember the order, so forgive me. As far as kind of other factors that could derail things, I mean, I suppose you never know what could happen. We all know COVID is gonna happen, but we're not relying on, say, the Second Avenue subway to make, for this to happen. This is happening irrespective of that, based on our confidence and the city's confidence in the demand and the economic development potential. On the park, Melissa, do you want to speak to the massing a little bit relative to First Avenue and the park, and perhaps then Allison on the secret process and then.
Sure. I mean, we are envisioning the setback. I think that, as noted in that illustrative building envelope, and we've located it on First Avenue because we feel like from a proportional standpoint, from a bulk standpoint, there was, a better proportional relationship between that facade and some of the immediately adjacent buildings and some of the buildings in the First Avenue corridor. While interestingly enough, on the park side, there are a number of very tall residential buildings that kind of surround Bellevue Park South. They, have slightly different proportions, so I think that's sort of the next stage of our development of the design, is to look at how we might further break down our massing at Innovation East to kind of respect some of those proportional relationships. But, there's a lot of height over there already that we felt kind of confident that from a building massing, design, architectural and urban standpoint, we could manage from that perspective. And then obviously we have done more extensive shadow studies as part of the EAS that I think Allison could probably speak to.
Sure, just gonna step forward. Hello. So I'm Allison Reddick. I'm with VHB. We were the consultant team working on the environmental review consistent with the seeker technical manual. And so if I heard your question, right, the concern about vegetation in the park and the potential for shadow to affect that, affect vegetation. So the seeker technical manual, right, has a specific chapter that looks at shadows. And so that is included in the EAS that was published on Friday. If you haven't had a chance to go in, there are a lot of diagrams related to show the shadow sweep. In terms of the analysis, right, it looks at all the 4 different analysis days consistent with seeker, and vegetation was considered in detail. And the conclusions are that there would not be the potential for significant adverse impact on the vegetative species. And that's both the trees, the ground cover, and the shrubs. So looked at, specifically for those. Sure.
Right, I have 2 questions related to the environmental assessment. So for the shadows assessment, what is the total number of daylight that these sunlight sensitive resources will receive? And also, since a commercial district with a residential component is being sought as a proposed action, was a residential scenario analyzed as part of the environmental assessment? And if so, why? And if so, why not?
Sure. So I'll start with the second question first about a residential scenario. That was not assessed in the EAS. When you move forward with an environmental review, you look at what the reasonable worst case development scenario is. And because residential isn't envisioned for this site, this is really about life sciences, that scenario didn't need to be analyzed. Okay.
But it is still a possibility that a residential development could be built on this site under the proposed zoning. And there are no proposed actions that limit the developer to what they are seeking. So in 2 years, when you decide to put shovels in the ground in 2026, things might happen between now and then, and the program could be entirely different, and it might not be cost feasible to pursue the development that you're seeking.
As developer, we don't have latitudes to build a residential building here.
Okay.
We're not permitted to do that based on our agreement with EDC.
So your next question was about the total number of hours of sunshine on different parts of the park. So that would be a really hard question to answer because light shadows change throughout the course of the year based on the angle of the sun. And then of course, throughout the course of the day as well. So what you can see in the EAS is that given the relationship of the park to the development site, shadow would be cast in the morning periods. And then depending on the season, would be off by different parts of that morning or just in the afternoon. And that shadow changes throughout. So there are substantial portions of the park that even in the morning continue to receive full sunshine. And then, given the location of the park to the buildings on the east and the buildings on the west, there's still that period of time where there's just uninterrupted sunshine for a portion of the day before the shadows, go from coming from the east and then later in the day from the west.
So actually, can I ask, when I know you guys are gonna come back for a public hearing in August, can I ask that you show us any of these diagrams that were mentioned? It's a little, if we can just have any of them on the screen. I know we asked for this, that would be great. And with that, maybe an existing versus proposed, just outline of the building and how it relates to Mount Carmel.
And you can see those in the environmental assessment statement. So they are available.
Okay,
If you want to, in advance of the August meeting, take a look.
perfect. We will take a look, but I know for the public, it would be nice if we have it in the presentation.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Okay, in the interest of time, knowing we went over the 45-minute, any other questions? I have a couple. Go for it.
Just one thing, the renderings, the comparison renderings with the old and the new are nice, but it's made more conspicuous the lack of images of the west elevation and the loading docks. And so I think that's a real design challenge that should be addressed in some fashion.
That's the side where the loading docks currently are, right, for the existing building?
The loading docks for the existing building are on 2 different elevations.
They're on the south side also.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
But there are 3 bays of loading on Mount Carmel and a separate kind of fenced in surface parking area as well.
But the west elevation is strictly, there's no nothing pedestrian friendly about it. There's no eyes on the street. This is just loading and it's just utility service.
Loading and illegally parked, DOH employees.
But I mean, in the new proposal.
Oh, the new one, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we can come back, when we come back, we can.
Yeah, let's share that. There is
Illustrate
a, transparent corner at the 27th Street and Mount Carmel where, the tenant bike area exists that would provide, certainly light and transparency, and we believe that to be a fairly active space, but yeah, we can bring back some additional imagery.
Brendan?
Since there's some questions coming up related to the environmental assessment, would it be possible to like send a digital copy of that to the office so that way we can share it with the committee?
Sure, it's available online right now, actually, as well. That's a public document on Zap, so you can access it.
Okay, yeah, if you could just direct me to where it is, so that way I can share it with the committee.
Yeah.
Well done. Thank you.
All right, I have two very quick questions, and those are EDC questions. You mentioned 1 in 3 are non-technical roles, yet the entire building is just labs. Non-technical roles, would they still need lab
I would
space?
assume so, because I'll.
You mentioned
ask-
marketing, operations, others.
Yeah, I mean, the companies and NYU, they have staff to support those labs that are not using those labs, so they will have, and then you can fill in
Also,
there, I would
the-
assume it's mixed use.
Right, the lab spaces are not only used for labs, there's also the lab support, and then there's an office portion of each lab building, at each lab space as well.
Right.
So, it's not only going to be the technical people, because there will also presumably be, it depends on the tenancy, right, but there will presumably be that this part of it.
Yeah, I think usually commercial lab buildings are anywhere from 30 to 50% office mixed in with the lab.
Got it. Okay, another question, this is just reiterating, something that was mentioned before. You mentioned impact on local economy, and this is obviously amazing project. Every community would love such a big infusion of housing job openings, that's great. Have you considered the impact on the housing stock? Understanding it's not part of this project, how has EDC thought about it beyond this project?
So I'm actually gonna welcome other EDCers who are here for this question, because I am so focused on life sciences. I know that it's important to me as well, because I think that that's part of the economy, right? You have to have housing, whether you are in the neighborhood now or come to the neighborhood. So I would welcome Gigi or Ben, if you could come in to address
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Gigi Lee from EDC Government and Community Relations. So, I know that this community board has been very tenacious about wanting to see housing, not only on Innovation East, but also on Spark. I think, our answer to that question is that, partially starting off with what Sue said is that, our vision for this area is really driven by making it a sort of the crown jewel of New York City's life sciences experience, right? The mayor has an expansive plan, but really this neighborhood is where we see the greatest potential for expansion and clustering that, statistics show. I think you have also seen, and you guys took a preliminary position on City of Yes, that, EDC does have housing in other projects, but, this project, we think, especially with Spark across the street, brings in a lot of public amenities and a lot of things that, additional things that, both for the community, for CUNY, for some of our other public partners who are here to speak to them today. And, we wish that this project could be everything for everyone. But I think there are other mayoral initiatives that are going on right now that really do focus on housing. And we know that some of those can be actualized in Community Board 6. But I think we have sent a very clear message that housing is not expected on Innovation East or Spark.
Got it. Thank you. So as follow up to that, and this is a comment now for the two projects. I understand EDC is trying to separate the two, but since this came up, as part of what the board has expressed interest in, if there's not opportunities for housing on site, at least understanding what are the city's plans for housing off site, or how any revenue from this project or Spark can contribute to future housing projects. However, that funding is earmarked, however this conversation is brought up, but just that what you're presenting to us is very exciting. This is an amazing project, and we're honestly grateful for it, but also this is like $3 billion between the two projects of public investment. None of it's going towards housing. So just know that this is gonna be in the comments we're gonna give, and we really hope that you give us more updates in the future. That's the EDC actually, about this issue.
Sure.
Okay. Seeing no other comments online, Sandy?
Sorry, just, back to the massing, I mean, my understanding is city zoning is, the concept is you put the taller buildings on the avenues, the shorter buildings on smaller side streets. So that would imply that First Avenue, most of the height on this site. And again, I'm not sure what the rationale is. Mount Carmel is a very narrow street. It's next to a park. So I think that's quite a big concern. The buildings, I believe it's 70 some odd feet taller than the previous building. So it's going to impinge on the park even more than what's there now. And as you said, it's not the trees that are there currently. The building's there for 100 years. The trees are gonna die. We're gonna need some new trees. So it's a more complex issue. I'd just like you to consider that as part of it. And you've got the envelope, you can put the building inside that envelope.
That's right.
One very last comment, I promise. You mentioned this is gonna be robustly planned, the ground floor. That's amazing. We would really love for the community board to have access to those spaces as part of that planning, and we'll coordinate. But yeah, our full board meets 2 hours every month. So we really think we can work ours. We're in there since we have a hard time finding space to meet.
No.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna go here for questions.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, with that, do folks need a minute for a break?
Sure.
Yes, okay. 1 minute water break for everybody. Yes. We'll be back in 1 minute.
There's nothing in the front. There's also a little water fountain area. Like right next to the bridge.
I bet we won't do management.
Yes. Surprising.
Yeah, like I, me, like. So they should put out something. For the 10 minutes. Oh, okay. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, Rick was.
I think they were, hey, how are you? I think they were wise.
Yeah. Bad for marketing.
Very bad for marketing. Actually, I'll keep them on. Yeah, I've just, what I think would make you a good things that we're doing and like actually. I was trying to find it. Putting more attention, even on the meeting. So side roles, unfortunately, today, a bunch of people like. I but I mean, I'm walking fast, I'm walking myself too. But if somebody cares. If you don't.
Oh, it's good. Let's move around a little bit. Yes, we can chat after.
Exactly.
No.
Oh, yeah, we need a chair.
Yeah, the committee chair is not here.
Where's your camera? That's your camera?
Right here.
Yes.
It's hot in your office.
It's hot.
Let's send.
Like this is
Before.
hotter
the
than
meeting.
my office.
Before
But I
the
think we
board.
also have a lot more people.
There are a lot of bodies.
A lot of things. We have the fun HVAC on account for this one.
Back from water break? Yes.
Yeah, nice to see you guys. And you guys, can I start?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, well, nice to see everyone. As you probably know, I'm former CD6 member Keith Powers, I'm City Council member Keith Powers. I just wanted to come say a few words. You guys, I know, talking about Spark momentarily, and I'm really, really grateful so far for all of CD6's input and collaboration and contributions to that. I really want to give your chair, Sandy and Kate, a huge shout out because together we've been going, even today, talking a lot about different pieces of it, different components of it. I wanted to give you some very brief update on a few items that have kind of developed maybe since we've all last talked or you've last talked, but also talk about the process and where we have been and where we're headed. I just want to share with you, I have just finished, well, maybe not finished, but have kind of undergone a pretty extensive process with stakeholders, some over here in CB6 capacities, some over here in other capacities, to really make sure that before we got into the certification, which was of course today, that there was a lot more discussion and collaboration and input. And also honestly, frankly, just more questions that we could talk about in a setting ahead of your public hearing, your public discussion of it. And often I think when we get into these ULURPs, you feel like rightfully in a time crunch. And especially when summertime comes, you feel like we have to do all this stuff now and later. So a lot of opportunities ahead of time to kind of talk about what this project will mean impact wise to the community, also how it will fit in with the neighborhood, and also just frankly some questions about things like design and other parts of the neighborhood that could integrate well with this piece of it, and also, you know, to talk a lot about all the different users there. Some good news, and I see CUNY's in the house. We did have a good landing spot, I believe, on the question around dorm space there, something we had been talking about, I had been talking about since the very outset of this, which is that making sure that those 600+ dorm spaces inside of Hunter, famously Keith Howard's mom, who lived inside of those. If I don't do something about that, Thanksgiving is off the table. But we had to really ask a question early about making sure that student space, not just existing students, but people that really see that as an affordable opportunity for someone who's going to obviously affordable university in the city, would have that option given if wanting to exercise. We know it's a heavy commuter, but still we know there are lots of spaces in Brookdale for the dorms and for the students. They majorly needed renovation anyway. They're long lived out, they're like long lived past their purpose. I think many of you have been in there. So we had a really good resolution, I think, to that. That's something you guys I know will probably talk about as well. I'll let CUNY share all the details of that, or let the team here share all of that, but essentially do a 1-for-1 replacement of dorm space. No matter what happens there, that campus is gonna go under renovation, so students would likely have to move out and go somewhere over the 4-year period anyway. So I wanted to find a space for them now, and also it made a lot of sense to do continuity, especially in proximity to larger campuses. We're talking about like Baruch, like Hunter, where some students may be living inside those dorms. So that is good news, where it's gonna still retain affordability. It is going to be much nicer, and we are gonna give students there, I think, still an opportunity to live somewhere that's very convenient. It's now really right off the subway line, a lot closer to transit than they are today. And I want to be thankful to the team there, because we had a lot of pushing and pulling on that. I think they might have voted on it today at the CUNY board meeting. Thumbs up means I think yes. So I think we have a plan that's approved now by CUNY officially that we can now talk about as part of this process as well, which is great news. I know there's a lot of other questions around housing and things, and I'll let the team here talk and answer about some of those questions on site, off site. But some of the other things we were discussing along that process is design, exact design concepts that we might want to see, open space, how it's going to work within the surrounding community. There's still things we want to talk about. We talk about first floor retail, how to enliven the streetscape. I personally, not living far from there, believe that area could use a little more activity on the streetscape. Could use a little more of sort of constant activity. It does sort of kind of do lose its some like, first floor retail when you get to 23rd Street, frankly. And so I think we could use a little more of that as well. So some things to talk about. And we've been talking a lot about total integration to the community, to about other available opportunities to create a network of open space that goes from north of here, south of here. Obviously, we have Astor Levy, we have Scientific Cooper, which is private, but very nice to walk through if you're on your way to work. And we have some park space and available space in the neighborhood. So how do we make a connected sort of experience for people there? And also, honestly, frankly, take in more, have more space to take in people that are going to be in that neighborhood. And one of the challenges here is so many different types of user groups here, from people that are going to be going there to work, people that are going to be going there for classes of different age groups. So how do we really create a lot of space for people to be able to use that no matter how you want to use it and have different uses for that. We also talked, of course, about the waterside pedestrian bridge, which you guys have heard about, something that desperately needs repair. And we talked about ways to make sure that they get what they need as sort of neighbors adjacent to this. Also, of course, always just sort of how, like, we can do other types of improvements, like ADA accessibility improvements, as we do that type of stuff. We put out, with the steering committee, something just you guys might have seen, which just kind of lays out some of the principles we were looking at. So it's important to state the principles up front, rather than get halfway through the process and realize, okay, this is kind of what we want to do. So a lot of it was really front loading this process. I am really, as I know how in these conversations are, being on this land use committee not so long ago, really, continue to want to look for what your input and what your comments are as we kind of move through this process. I'm grateful you guys are scheduling so on the first day that they're certified, because that gives you a lot of opportunity, I think, to continue to talk with me, with the team here, about what is a really best landing spot for this project. But I want to say, in very broad strokes, I think this is a great project. I think it has tremendous opportunity for the city to land in a very, very sweet spot alongside the project that's across the street, and other things happening here on economic development, on good paying jobs, to create a really good pipeline. We're going to create a new high school here. That's rare. We get the opportunity to do that, connected to the jobs that are there, and also integrate community into this as well. It's on a lot. I know we want to talk about more, but it's a lot of problems all at once and do really well. But I'm also very sensitive to the folks who live adjacent to this and want to know how this is going to interact with their neighborhood, how it's going to remove different pressures on the different communities. And that's where I'm really going to listen to hear from you guys a lot about what those additional challenges might be. But I will tell you, I think the first meeting I had when I came to the city council was with folks to talk about this being a sanitation garage with no other details, no other economic development, no other sketch out. And I think my folks, my friends in Stuyvesant Town, Waterside, East Midtown Plaza, and Kips Bay, and others, I think rightfully and silently rejected the idea that we would take on a garage with no other sketch or plan for what would happen on this site. And now we have a fully formed plan with lots of inputs into it, and I think a clearer vision of what might actually, how this might actually help rebuild some facilities that really need it and contribute to the larger growth of the city. So I think we're in a much better place. And I think I want to thank a lot of people who really held the line to make sure we got a project that we really deserved. And I think we're in a much better spot in that. So I just want to be grateful to the entire team, all the agencies, particularly EDC, for letting us go through a process where we can ask a lot of questions and talk about it. I'm very grateful for CB6 who are on top of it. I know you guys are, about asking all the right questions and making sure this fits really well. And I just will say, and I said this earlier, the leadership CB6 is showing on a number of issues right now in the city, and this land use committee and this board should be applauded. Because I'm sitting in a community board, I know it's hard to get consensus and do hard things, but we talk about housing and things like that, and other things, economic development too. I think you guys are playing a great role, so I really want to also just come and share my appreciation for that. So I don't want to shortcut. I want them to give their presentation, answer questions, but I think it's so important to our community and make sure we get it right. I just want to make sure I stopped in and added both my support, but also give you guys a little bit of an update what's going on. I think there's probably even more to share if you guys can. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Please turn the AC on. Thank you, guys.
Actually, can you open the window next to you? Sure. Okay, so we'll jump right in for the 30-something folks who are watching online. This is points 3 and 4, NYT EDC's ULURP application for Spark. Brendan, can we share the presentation?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, just give me a moment.
Oh, thank you so much.
Time.
Now you have a happy track.
Okay, and they can see me from here. Okay, perfect.
Great.
There we go.
Thank you, Brendan. Well, while that loads, good evening, everyone. So my name is Julianne Hertzwitz. I'm the Senior Vice President at the New York City Economic Development Corporation. Today, I'll be presenting to you the Science Park and Research Campus, Kips Bay. For your consideration, 7 discretionary actions as part of our Uniform Land Use Procedure application. Actually, I know my thought. Did I advance my thought?
Is the clicker working for us?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, the next one.
Can we go next, also full screen, please? Thank you. If you can just close that up.
The Spark Hips Bay project honors 150 years of nursing education history on and near the Brookdale campus. The Bellevue Nurses Training School first opened in 1878 on East 26th Street, just nearby. And later in the 1950s, other medical institutions like the VA and NYU Medical Center also opened in the neighborhood. In 1954, the Hunter Brookdale School of Nursing completed construction of their campus. The buildings are the same from that time. And more recently, the neighborhood has become home to New York City's growing life sciences industry with the opening of the Alexandria Center for Life Science just north of our project site in 2010. 2 years ago, Governor Hochul, Mayor Adams, announced a plan to transform the Hunter Brookdale campus into a modern hub for life sciences, education, and public health. This plan both honors the history of the site and the Kips Bay neighborhood while providing community benefits and a precedent-setting model for health and science education. Next slide, please. Spark Hips Bay is a project born out of an urgent need to provide better facilities for institutions that are key to New Yorkers' health, particularly in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, at a time when nurses were in demand at greater numbers than ever before, and the city's public hospitals and the medical examiner were over capacity. Spark Hips Bay is an investment in a better future for our public institutions, including the delivery of first-class healthcare and public education facilities that the employees and users of these institutions so deserve. COVID-19 not only impacted New Yorkers and the city's healthcare infrastructure, it also impacted the city's economy. We're pleased to share that Spark Hips Bay will create over 15,000 construction and permanent jobs, resulting in approximately $42 billion of economic impact to New York City over the next 30 years. This project is backed by over $1 billion of public funding already committed and will leverage over $2 billion in private investment. Spark will also invest in the Kips Bay neighborhood, addressing long-standing community concerns by making East 25th Street pedestrian bridge ADA accessible, adding new public open space, and supporting connectivity between spaces in the neighborhood through improved pedestrian crossings and widened sidewalks. Next slide, please. Altogether, Spark Hips Bay is a first of its kind life sciences, innovation, career, and education hub. Next slide. The project will be a model for workforce development, creating direct connections between public education and private and public sector jobs, all within the same city block. Next slide. EDC, as the main economic development arm for the city of New York, is focused on growing innovative sectors with an emphasis on equity, as well as building neighborhoods as places to live, learn, work, and play. As Sue has already mentioned today, the life sciences industry is a future-forward industry that creates a broad range of opportunities for innovators. Spark Hips Bay and Innovation East, just across the street, together will further cement Kips Bay at the center of New York City's life sciences industry, which has seen extraordinary growth in the past 15 years. Next slide. Following the project announcement in 2022, EDC has led the Spark Hips Bay project, convened its city and state interagency team, and engaged with CB6 and the local community to solicit your feedback and priorities for this project. Over the past 2 years, we've reached a number of milestones. Many of them are shown here today, and I'm quite proud of it. That included release of the Spark Hips Bay Master Plan in fall of 2023, which was produced in consultation with Skidmore, Owings and Merrill architectural firm. It outlined a conceptual design and plan to move the project forward. In January, we kicked off the Spark Community Task Force and held a public open house with over 150 attendees from the community to learn more about the project, provide feedback on the overall design. We held community walking tours of the neighborhood and the pedestrian bridge, as well as site visits to Health and Hospitals Bellevue and the medical examiner's office with Community Board 6 to highlight the extraordinary need for new facilities at Spark. EDC will oversee the design and construction of the first phase of the project, and we have procured the design team of Enyart and Datner Architects to build out first-class educational facilities for CUNY and New York City Public Schools, Spark Square, the new ADA pedestrian bridge, and neighborhood resiliency, all within the first phase of this project. EDC also released in January a request for expressions of interest to identify an anchor tenant for the Spark Kids Bay Life Sciences buildings. This will help create a vision for the future of life sciences at Spark, and responses are due later this summer. Next slide, please. Beginning in January, EDC, the city, state, interagency team, and the design team met with the Spark Kids Bay Community Task Force 6 times to create a set of community design principles. I'm glad to see you have some printouts in front of you. The task force was co-chaired by Councilmember Powers and Community Board 6 Chair Sandy McKee. These design principles will guide the design of the first phase of Spark, which EDC will be designing and implementing, as well as included in the future developer RFP for the project's second phase. The task force created 25 design principles across 6 overarching themes, which focus on including a connected, inclusive, activated, safe, comfortable, and distinctive project in public realm that meaningfully contributes to and enhances the environment of the Kids Bay neighborhood. Recommendations include better access to nearby public open spaces and designing Spark Square so that it meets universal design standards and provides a variety of spaces to encourage a range of programming and use. Next. Spark Kids Bay addresses long-standing community concerns and priorities. Together, this project will deliver a new ADA pedestrian bridge on 25th Street, modern facilities for over 60 CUNY degree programs, a new career-focused public high school, 1 million square feet of cutting-edge life sciences space, over 1.5 acres of public open space and public realm improvements, space to educate, train our youth, college and mid-career professionals in these industries. This will be the largest project to deploy sustainable and circular construction methods, and I'll talk more about that later. And we're proud to share that we've reached a project labor agreement, and the entire project will be built with union labor. That's 12,000 construction jobs and over 3,100 permanent jobs. And go to the next slide. Thank you. So here is the conceptual site plan and design for Spark. The site plan is fixed, however, the building design is illustrative. The site plan is actually quite similar to the current layout of the Hunter Brookdale campus. However, of course, we can improve upon it by making this campus more porous and open, removing the fencing surrounding the block, and creating a new central public open space at Spark Square. So moving from east to west, the new ADA accessible 25th Street pedestrian bridge will connect to the campus and ramp down through Spark Square, exiting about mid-block on 25th Street. We also anticipate that an egress stair, similar to the location of the existing stair at the northwest corner of 25th Street and the FDR, will also be located there. The eastern half of the block is creating an educational campus by co-locating New York City Public Schools and CUNY. The CUNY building will not exceed 370 feet, which is contextual with Waterside Towers, which is at the tallest 350 feet. The buildings will be appropriately designed with additional noise attenuation due to blocking out noise from the FDR. Moving west, you can see mid-block, we will have OCME, Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, in the podium of the Life Sciences building. Proximity to the Hirsch building across 26th Street was critical for locating OCME mid-block. All sensitive functions of the Forensic Pathology Center will be accessed via 26th Street and enter the building through a dedicated sally port. This building will not exceed 420 feet height. The First Avenue building will have Health and Hospitals Bellevue in the podium with Life Sciences above. The ground floor will include healthy concessions, a pharmacy, and retail along First Avenue, and the building will not exceed 500 feet in height. All of the buildings will front onto Spark Square, a new publicly accessible open space that's roughly the size of Zuccotti Park in Lower Manhattan. In total, over 1.5 acres of public realm improvements are planned, including widened sidewalks and improved multimodal circulation in and around the block. We are working with CUNY and New York City Public Schools to design and construct the new academic facilities, Spark Square, the ADA pedestrian bridge, and flood wall tie-in as part of this first phase of the project. So now I will quickly walk through the different users and institutions of the campus. So first, the City University of New York. This is actually the first time in history that CUNY will be locating 3 distinct colleges on one campus. This includes the Hunter College School of Nursing and Health Professions, which will remain on site but replace the 1950s era buildings with new modern academic facilities. The Borough of Manhattan Community College's healthcare programs will be expanding from Lower Manhattan, and the Graduate School of Public Health and Health Policy will be relocating from Harlem. Together, these three schools will offer over 60 community degree programs at Spark to the many first-generation and BIPOC students who seek out a world-class and affordable education at CUNY. The next slide, you can see a brand new public high school will be built at Spark, focused on science and health professions with career-connected learning. The co-location, not only with CUNY, but other preeminent public institutions and private sector companies, will allow high school students to earn early college credits, obtain industry-validated credentials, and facilitate access to work-based learning experiences. On the next slide, you can see New York City Health and Hospitals, Bellevue Hospital. It is New York City's first public hospital and set the standard for providing care across all economic strata. Bellevue Hospital currently provides essential and life-saving care to New Yorkers from all 5 boroughs. And the hospital's expansion to Spark will allow Bellevue to reduce wait times for ambulatory care by up to 1 week. An advanced nursing practice and simulation training center will train H&H employees system-wide in clinical settings to improve their care and prepare for all medical institutions. Next, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner will relocate to Spark from their existing and quite degraded facility on 30th Street and First Avenue, allowing them to build state-of-the-art facilities that will better help support the essential work that OCME undertakes. The Hirsch Building, located across the street at 26, is actually the largest public DNA lab in North America. OCME is a critical part of New York City's public health system and needs new space to continue their important work while training the next generation of medical examiners for New York City and the country. And as mentioned previously, at EDC, we are dedicated to creating new cutting-edge life sciences space that will support a variety of life science needs and space for industry collaboration, convening, and exhibition space. Spark and Innovation Inc. contributions to new life sciences office space will amplify the existing life sciences opportunities in the neighborhood, further cementing its position as New York City Science District. We are focused on attracting a world-class anchor tenant to locate at Spark, as already mentioned, via request for expressions of interest that was released back in January. So, on to the ULURP actions. To make this generational project a reality, EDC is seeking approval before Community Board 6 of 7 discretionary land use actions that are crucial to achieving the full breadth of the Spark Hipsay vision. Next slide, please. First, we are seeking a zoning map amendment, otherwise known as rezoning, for this site to change the zoning from R8 to C64, which will allow for higher density commercial, community facility, and residential uses. Although there is no plan for housing on the site, mandatory inclusionary housing, or MIH, must be mapped over the area that is being rezoned, as is required by city policy when a rezoning results in an increase in potential residential floor area. We recognize the extraordinary need for housing across the 5 boroughs and thank Community Board 6 for your commitment to building housing in your community. The City of New York is hyper-focused on identifying new housing opportunities across the city. And with recent policy initiatives like City of Yes, as well as the state's removal of the 12 FAR limit for housing, new housing production will be more widely permitted and produced in neighborhoods like Hipsay and throughout Community Board 6. Spark Hipsay provides an extremely unique opportunity to bring world-class public education, healthcare, and public institutions and commercial life sciences together in one block. And to that end, on the next slide, we are seeking a special permit to allow a mix of life science companies in terms of scale, size, and production to locate at Spark. The special permit for bulk modifications will allow the flexibility to develop larger floor plates up to 30,000 square feet, as is preferred by the industry. The special permit also imposes height restrictions across the entire campus, and the buildings slope down in height from First Avenue to the FDR and the water. These 2 special permits will maximize the type of life sciences businesses and anchor institutions that we are trying to attract to Spark Hipsay for the future success of this campus. We are, on the next slide, we are also seeking disposition authority to enter into a long-term lease with CUNY for their management of their facility on the eastern end of the campus. On the western end of the campus, shown here as phase 2 component B, we will competitively procure and enter into a long-term lease with the developer to build out the 2 life sciences buildings, which will house OCME and H&H respectively. This will also allow the future selected developer to maintain the public open space at Spark Square, ensuring a dedicated maintenance partner for the central open space. On the next slide, we'll see acquisition for health and hospitals. We will be pursuing a land use action to enable the potential acquisition of space within the life sciences building along First Avenue to facilitate Bellevue Hospital's expansion onto the campus and its operations within the building's podium highlighted here in blue. On the next slide, the 6th land use action includes site selection for Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. This is required for them to relocate from 30th Street, just a few blocks away, to our campus, and includes the potential acquisition of space within the mid-block life sciences building. And then finally, the 7th land use action will allow for the replacement of East 25th Street pedestrian bridge with a new ADA accessible and universally designed pedestrian bridge. The new bridge will be wider than the current bridge and enhance connections between the Spark campus, the waterfront, and the neighborhood, continuing to serve as an important east-west connection over the FDR within this community. The current bridge, as you can see here, does not meet current state DOT height clearance requirements and will need to be raised. EDC will continue to consult with Community Board 6, Waterside Towers, and the wider community as the design of the pedestrian bridge gets underway. This may include engagement around multimodal uses on the bridge, lighting, and other design themes. Please. We know that other public realm concerns exist in the community too, including pedestrian experience and safety. And we're pleased to be able to deliver through Spark Hips Bay over 1.5 acres of new and improved public realm. This includes the creation of Spark Square, 0.6 acre central public open space with a pavilion for pop-up programming, exhibition space, maybe even a cafe. Improved connectivity to neighborhood open spaces. We are also widening the sidewalks around our block. This includes on 25th and 26th Streets, widening the sidewalks to 15 feet. Today, 26th Street is as narrow as 8 feet. And widening the sidewalk on First Avenue in front of our project to 20 feet from 16 feet today. As noted, East 25th Street pedestrian bridge will become ADA accessible. We'll also have safer pedestrian crossings and improved neighborhood circulation. This includes adding a new lane of traffic and making 26th Street bidirectional. This is important to both service buildings on the Spark campus, while also improving response times for ambulances that are stationed on the block today. This will also ensure that 25th Street remains more pedestrian in nature. And we will also have a safe driveway going north-south to improve access to Bellevue for accessoride and ambulant patients. Buildings, ground floors will be transparent and activated, inviting the public to enter the campus. All buildings will have retail on the ground floor, with obviously a particular focus on First Avenue, which as noted before will include a pharmacy and healthy concessions. The project will also tie into the Kips Bay Coastal Resiliency Project, providing long-term resiliency for both the site and broader neighborhood. This flood wall incorporated into the building along 25th Street and the FDR is a missing link in the city's larger strategy to protect the east side of Manhattan from storm surge and coastal flooding. And the next view is an illustrative view of Spark Square, looking west mid-block with the life sciences buildings in view and the educational buildings behind us. The next slide speaks to sustainability initiatives. We're really pleased as part of this project to deploy for the first time ever EDC circular construction design guidelines. This means that this project will be safely deconstructed and not demolished, which is a safer and greener process that seeks to reuse existing materials wherever possible to avoid construction waste. Additionally, The project will also have an energy master plan as part of the city's commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions for municipal buildings by 80% by 2050. And on the next slide, Spark is also a new national model for workforce development through co-location of public secondary education alongside leading public institutions for higher education. We also recently launched the Kips Bay Science District Education and Workforce Task Force, which brings together 30 senior life sciences, healthcare, public health professionals, among others, to shape the future of career pathways, programs, and partnerships to make access to these jobs more equitable. This task force will release a report in 2025 articulating this vision and providing specific recommendations for how projects like Spark Kips Bay, as well as Innovation East and other neighborhood stakeholders can work together to create and support integrated academic and career pathways for all New Yorkers. Lastly, just want to say thank you for your consideration of the Spark Kips Bay project. Spark Kips Bay is part of New York City's recovery story. It will become a national model for place-based economic development. It is a project for this time, building state-of-the-art public health care and academic institutions, shepherding more New Yorkers into well-paying jobs in future-forward industries, growing New York City's economy, and delivering long-standing community priorities to improve the public realm and create new open space. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm going to turn it to Mitch Gibson from CUNY to present on the dorm replacement plan and speak to the importance of this project. Thank you.
I assume my slide too.
Yes, you're ready.
You'll be happy to know that I only have 4 slides. So we're almost done. Not really, but what should I do?
Yeah.
Probably before, yeah.
Skip ahead. Yeah, you got it. Thank you.
So I'm Mitch Gibson. I am a senior advisor to the executive vice chancellor and chief operating officer at Batista at CUNY. Spark Kips Bay will enable CUNY to bring together students from Hunter. Spark Kips Bay will enable CUNY to bring together students from Hunter College School of Nursing and School of Health Professionals, the CUNY Graduate School of Public Health and Health Policy, and the Borough of Manhattan and Community College's multiple healthcare program. This will enable us to expand our healthcare education and workforce development offerings by creating a hub for collaboration between academics, students, industry, and community members. We believe this project will place CUNY at the center of the city and state's mission to support and further advance the life sciences and healthcare industry. But for this project to proceed, CUNY will have to relocate students and faculty and staff from the Brookdale campus. We have identified relocation sites for all components of the Brookdale campus, including, crucially, a new dorm facility. This is not a new dorm facility. The decision to vacate dates back to the early 2010, as Keith earlier described, when the property was transferred to the city for another project. So there have been no capital improvement projects on the campus since then, and as a result, Brookdale dorm facilities are not in great condition. There are about 650 beds at the campus today. Across the rest of Manhattan, CUNY has 5 other housing options, totaling over 1,230 beds. And the cost ranges from $1,150 to $2,240 per bed per month. The replacement facility for the Brookdale dorm is 569 Lexington Avenue, which is located at 51st Street. Some of you will recognize it as the former Doubletree Hotel.
I'm sorry, the former what?
Doubletree. This location in Midtown East is conveniently located with a great transit access, including the number 6 train, which provides just a short train ride up to the Hunter Main campus at East 68th Street or south to Spark at East 23rd Street. You also see a reference here to 63 Madison, where we are relocating our Hunter School of Nursing. So you plan to place it. So the next slide. So the key to this plan is maintaining affordable options for our students. For students who resided at Brookdale in the fall 2022, when the project was first announced, we will be locking in their rates at the new dorm at $816 per month. And that includes about 236 students as of this spring. Other students will be charged $969, $1,097, or $1,273 per month, depending on the number of beds in the room, 4, 3, or 2. This is a great deal for our students. 569 Lex is a great place to live and provides first-class dorm space that CUNY students deserve at a price that is consistent with CUNY's commitment to affordability. The facility features modern and attractive amenities such as lounges, study areas, a gym, storage, and a large communal kitchen. The City of New York, the City University of New York strives to identify and provide affordable quality housing options as part of its mission to provide an affordable quality education. And as you can see, this plan is in keeping with that mission. Not the question.
Thank you.
So now we'll actually, I'm so sorry.
No, no.
We thought it would make sense to have our other interagency partners just say brief remark, if that's okay.
Sure. Go for it.
We'll go very quick. So I think next is actually, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, keep it in advance. Thank you. One more. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
I have very brief remarks. So let me begin. Good evening, Land Use Committee, elected officials, city agency partners, and residents of Manhattan's Community Board 6. My name is Serge St. Ledger Jr. I'm the Senior Director of Community Partnerships in the Office of Family and Community Engagement at New York City Public Schools. On behalf of Chancellor David Banks, Deputy Chancellor Kenita Lloyd, and Executive Director Christina Melendez, we want to thank you for your ongoing engagement with the Spark Project. New York City Public Schools has been in close collaboration with our partners at EDC in bringing this project to this point. New York City Public Schools is excited about this project and supportive in making this a reality. Most importantly, we are looking forward to the opportunities Spark will bring to our students. Spark is a unique collaboration between city agencies, hospitals, and institutions of higher learning that can transform our city and inspire future scientists, researchers, doctors, technicians, and administrators. In partnership with CUNY, local hospitals, and city agencies, our students will have access and interactions with many careers in the science and health fields. New York City Public Schools supports this project and will continue working with our city agency partners and engaging with the community as Spark comes to fruition. As we are still relatively early in the process, admittedly, there are issues that will become more in focus as we come closer to the school opening. Issues like enrollment, curriculum, and post-secondary preparedness, among many other issues related to schools, will be addressed in collaboration with various offices at New York City Public Schools. For example, the Office of New School Development and Design, the Office of Student Pathways, and other offices at New York City Public Schools. We will be accessible throughout this process. I am prepared to listen and take any questions back to my colleagues at New York City Public Schools to get answers to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good evening. My name is Dr. Andrew Wallach. I'm an ambulatory care chief at Bellevue. I also serve as the New York City Health and Hospitals ambulatory chief medical officer for the system. Indeed, Bellevue is most excited about its participation in Spark Kips Bay, a groundbreaking initiative whereby both funding and political will aligned, not always an easy achievement. The project will allow for our much needed ambulatory expansion. And of the many lessons learned from the recent COVID-19 pandemic, perhaps one of the most important is the need for each New Yorker to have a primary care provider. This expansion will help us achieve that goal. Specifically though, as you've heard, the new space will allow New York City Health and Hospitals Bellevue to further expand its primary care, prevention, and wellness services for its ambulatory patients and decrease wait times for these appointments. And by having primary care vacate its current space in the existing Bellevue Ambulatory Care Building on First Avenue and 27th Street, this will allow for the much needed expansion of our outpatient specialty services, services such as cardiology, neurology, orthopedic surgery, etc., in the old building. Bellevue has a strong history of commitment to serving all New Yorkers. In order to do so, we train and maintain a diverse and skilled workforce, which reflects the patients to whom we provide care. Being a part of Spark Kips Bay will help us continue that training in the Simulation Center, as well as solidify relationships with the Department of Education and CUNY and create pipelines of future staff to work within our health and hospital system. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. So we're very, very excited about this opportunity with Spark. So our current OCME, we are innovators in science and in training and in research. And this really gives us the opportunity to move into a very brand new facility. The facility that we're currently at 521st Avenue is old. It was built you've seen it.
Yeah.
It was built in the 60s. I mean, John F. Kennedy was president when it was built. And at the time it was state of the art, but right now it's not suitable for the innovative science that we're doing right now. And this air conditioning is good compared to, 521st Avenue. But anyway, this is really great because in the new facility, we'll have our forensic toxicology center will be there. We are at the cutting edge of the opioid crisis, finding new fentanyl all the time. And the research on what we are finding here helps out the city and law enforcement and the region. So it's really, really great. A lot of the people who work there are interns from John Jay Criminal Science, College of Criminal Justice and other places. So that's really, really great. And a large percentage of the people who are the scientists currently today started out as interns. So this is a really, really good opportunity, the synergy of having other educational institutions on the same campus. I can just imagine how great this is going to be. Another thing about us is the medical examiners. So medical examiners, they are very highly specialized doctors called forensic pathologists. And believe it or not, there's only 500 of them in the entire country. So we compete against every other state, every other county to hire these forensic pathologists. The way we've been able to, we currently have 30 of these 500 people. And the way we've been able to do it is we are essentially also a medical school. So doctors who want to specialize in forensic pathology, when they are finished with medical school, they go and they have their specialized training at OCME. And then afterwards, many of them stay on. So that's a really great thing for the city as well. We are attracting those 500 people into the city. Incidentally, we also train about 20% of all of the medical examiners in the country come from us. So I just want to thank you all. We're very, very excited about this. And we look forward to what's to come. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Great, and now I have the privilege of quarterbacking any and all questions that this committee has. We have all of the city partners as well as a robust roster of EDC project team members that specialize in sort of all of the different aspects to answer your anticipated questions.
Go ahead, Susan.
So, once the projects are completed, how many students are anticipated to be utilizing the educational facilities and other?
So do you want to answer, maybe you can answer for each component?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't have the number in front of me, but we can get you, I don't know the total.
Well, here's the reason I'm asking.
Yeah.
So, there's going to be 1,000 full-time jobs at Innovation East, 3,100 full-time jobs at Spark, 4,100. I imagine there's going to be students numbering in the thousands that's a significant influx of people to the area. And this may not be in your purview, but my question is, how are we all gonna move them around? You know, traffic up First Avenue is a nightmare, as it is. How are these people gonna get to this facility?
Sure, so I can start and then I think we can have some additions. I think, you know, completely recognize that this plan will transform the neighborhood. To that end, I think we, one of the slides Julianne spoke to earlier is really about circulation, right? When we mapped out the uses, we are thinking about sort of peaks and valleys of different times that will be, you know, used by the different types of user. And so that is something we have thought about both with the street widenings, with really making sure that, you know, for the hospital expansion, that there's a separate Sally Port for what we know sometimes with accessoride blocks, you know, blocks up traffic. We are really hoping that the increased resiliency and connectedness along the East River, more people will kind of bike and come in through that way, connecting either NYC Ferry and then coming across, or kind of going the other way, north and south, right? And so I think we will continue to think about and look at other ways to really address circulation and connectedness, both not only within the campus itself in terms of different users and different buildings, but also kind of zoom out and think about it from a sort of more neighborhood and community perspective.
One way we could address the increase in traffic is to build housing on the site. No, but in all seriousness, this is a transit desert, and by Manhattan standards, this is a transit desert, and this is, I believe, the only intentional industry cluster in the city that's in a transit desert. You know, I don't want to speak for the whole board here, but I think, you know, if you were to come to us and say, here's a building with more FAR and it's higher, but there's housing in it, we would be fine with that. We want these jobs. We want this to succeed. What we don't want is thousands and thousands of cars on our streets every morning and every afternoon. So again, that's just one more compelling reason. I know EDC does build housing on some of their projects. We would, again, that's just one more reason we think this should include housing. We're going to continue to push for it.
Thank you.
Larry?
This is also a compelling reason to build the Second Avenue subway, the third segment of it, which would alleviate a lot of these concerns about this being a so-called transit desert. I wanted to ask about one other thing that I didn't see and has been brought up in the past, and that is on 25th Street at Asser Levy Recreation Center. There's a crosswalk that's extremely dangerous as vehicles exit the FDR Drive going southbound and then going west, turning the corner and then come up upon a stop sign and a crosswalk. This pedestrian bridge, if it were to have a leg that went over to the Asser Levy playground area, could alleviate that concern, and it could also have a potential entrance into this campus on this second level. And I really would like to see that concern addressed, primarily from a health and safety point of view, since this is associated with Bellevue and the nursing school and so much more.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah, thank you, Larry, for that comment, and duly noted on the crosswalk. We think there's a lot of opportunity to make the crosswalk safer, most likely raising the crosswalk, looking also at signaling if possible. And those are active conversations with Department of Transportation. In regards to the pedestrian bridge, it's an interesting idea. I think regardless of the landing, having a crosswalk that meets up safely with the pedestrian bridge egress is very important, so that we are providing, safe access to the students, residents, visitors alike who will be coming to the campus and going in between Aspen and Spark campus. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So I've two short, micro and macro scale questions. Macro scale, what's the anticipated timeline of the entire development, start to finish? For full build out? On the micro scale, with the new pedestrian bridge, in order for it to be ADA compliant, I imagine the entry is going to be closer to First Avenue. Is that correct? So it might be, is there any plan for someone in a wheelchair to not have to go all the way to First and then double back if they want to be in the other direction?
I'd love to pull up the site plan to show you that a little bit better if possible, but to answer your first question, so construction of the campus is expected to begin in 2025, through the end of 2025. And we're expecting to complete the entire campus in 2031. The first phase for CUNY and New York City Public Schools, Park Square, pedestrian bridge will be a year earlier in 2030. So there's one image right before these slides. That I'd love to just I apologize if the people on the screen can't see me, but right now what's showing here is the pedestrian bridge, which will have to be raised, right? I noted that before. It'll come onto the Spark campus and then meander through Spark Square and then exit again on an ADA ramp on 25th Street, so not all the way to First Avenue, about mid-block. We'll also have options for egress on stairs here and then at the corner as well.
But it might be nice to mandate an elevator closer to the FDR if someone wanted to get off the bridge and then be at grade.
It's something to consider, obviously more costly. This is a very tricky intersection for the project. The flood wall is going to go here and wrap around our building. And then of course, the pedestrian bridge actually has to have independent utility when it's constructed. So, something we can explore in this phase as we start design, but a little hard to place, but I appreciate the question and the idea.
More questions? Oh, actually, you want to go first? Go for it.
Yeah, so much better than a garbage garage. I think we can all agree on. And just to tell you, I live on 23rd Street, so I'm very interested in this. I live in Peter Cooper, which has been, and Stuyvesant Town, which has been mortified to the community's detriment. I am a City College graduate, so I know the commute to 125th Street, 145th Street pretty well. And I am dismayed to once again hear you, I guess the only way I can say is slap down somebody who has the nerve to ask a question about housing. Many of us have submitted comments. I attended the press announcement, the press conference. I've been to the open house. Over and over, this community board and the community is talking about the need for housing. And nobody's listening. You're not listening. I don't know what it would take for you to hear what's being said. We've got City of Yes on the horizon. I can tell you from walking around the neighborhood, there's tons of construction. It's condos, it's co-ops, it's luxury rental. We're not gonna have a housing in the area that's gonna be affordable. And frankly, I don't find those dorm prices so affordable. If you 4 people in a whatever that is, a suite, 900 each. Maybe 3 people could get together and rent an apartment for the same amount of money. So I feel like we're not being heard, the community isn't being heard, the community board isn't being heard. I see a failure of nerve on the part of CUNY to not demand what they really need to replace what's been part of it, what would enhance the appeal of this school for candidates. And I feel like my time is being wasted, and I feel it's disingenuous because this is not the first project I've gotten involved in or attended, for the city to pretend that they want the input, knowing all along that they're just going to ignore it. So perhaps you'd like to give me an answer about housing, but please don't give me the same answer you gave that other person.
Well, I think my answer is I hear you. And this board has been, from the get-go, very, persistent and clear about wanting housing as part of, Spark. It, was discussed as part of the task force. And, it is just not part of the Spark plan.
So you don't hear us, basically. You don't, the decision has been made. But let me make a positive suggestion. Because when you're talking about transportation, I can tell you probably haven't been on the corner of 23rd and First when the school's let out, or when there's 50 people who, from the change of shift at various hospitals. And I would just make a suggestion that you consider running a shuttle bus from the 2 28th Street subway stops on the R, and the W, I guess it is, and the 6. And run a shuttle bus down 28th Street, which isn't being blocked off for any reason, so that people working there, people visiting for various services, can get on a shuttle bus and not tax the rest of, what limited transportation we already have.
So we'll definitely take that back, and we will, continue to share these concerns with both DOT and MTA.
So if I can actually build on that, and for the record, we have met in preparation for this meeting and for other meetings with EDC repeatedly, and repeatedly EDC was very clear about the plan and that this is an economic development plan. I am curious though, whether there's any thought that went into using some revenue, and this is just, I don't have an economic background, whether there's any consideration for using revenue from this development for future housing in the district anywhere, whether any of it could be earmarked, or somehow thinking that $1 billion investment, which again is an amazing project, can somehow in the future help. Because like I think you mentioned, this is going to transform the neighborhood, and that's great. But if it transforms the neighborhood in a way that displaces a lot of folks, understandably, a neighborhood that I think we are YIMBYs, we want the development here, this is great, but this could spark backlash. And I'm just curious if you've thought about that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I don't think we've had that exact conversation, but happy to take it back and discuss with, with the project team as well as EDC leadership.
Got it. And I guess also related to it, and that's probably going to come in our resolution, is to ask, City of Yes was great. We all voted unanimously for it, but we still were hoping it would go further. So part of our request is going to be to consider zoning studies for, again, transforming this corridor. How does the future of First Avenue and Second Avenue in our district look like? Again, upzoning it. I know it's uncommon for everybody to say, yes, go higher, but because we need housing, surprisingly, everyone's like, yeah, go higher. We're already casting shadows, so might as well. So just for consideration. Gabe, did you?
Yeah, I did have a question. It's a little niche. Community board specific. How can we've talked about, and EDC has given us verbal affirmation that there will be community board use rooms in this development. We were wondering, how can we get something in writing? And furthermore, would EDC be willing to assist in the some sort of interim space, since Brookdale campus was one of the places we did use periodically?
Yeah, so we have been made aware of the request from quite early on. I think your district manager has been the one that is most persistent. We did get some more specific details as to what exactly, in terms of square footage, in terms of use. We got that from your board leadership last week. We have been in discussions with TCAS in terms of how that process would work, getting more information in terms of your lease, as well as how it would transition to a new space. And so my recommendation would be to memorialize that as specifically as possible as part of your resolution. And my understanding is that, that is something we will continue to flesh out as we move forward in this ULURP process.
I think we're very.
And we're very committed to finding ways that we can make that happen. And so I think an example is, we know that there will for sure be a large auditorium that will be used by, the education uses, in the building. And so, for example, something that has been arranged in other projects is to carve out, let's say, 12 times a year or 15 times a year, that the board will be able to use that space as a priority user for their community board meetings. As an example, right? These are sort of MOUs that have been put in place in other projects where community boards have also asked for either community board preference or community event preference. Right, but there will be many ways that we are gonna try to meet that ask.
I was just gonna tack on that in the interim, which I totally understand that request. I think there are a lot of opportunities just even across the agency team. So, happy to take that into consideration, see what exists. We held a community task force meeting at Health and Hospitals Bellevue. We know that CUNY, New Durham has some space, so happy to look across our portfolio to see what exists.
Any other thoughts, questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much. We
Great.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
This is also great. Thank you so much. Sandy and everyone who was part. All right, last item on the agenda, waiving shares report, just one item. We do have to meet in August. Usually we take July, August off, but we have to meet in August for both public sessions for the two ULURPs. So we're suggesting Monday, the 26th. Hopefully we have enough folks who can make it. If not, Brandon is gonna circulate the link so you can share it with everybody.
It has to be in person, I don't think.
It does not have to be in person because it's being rescheduled. Yeah,
No, it does have to be in person. It's under the open meetings law.
right, but everyone's excused and they would count towards.
Yes.
work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we'll have someone in person, but if someone is not,
Right,
If someone can't make it, then they would be excused.
Yes.
You would still need a quorum though, so it's still important for people to come, if they can.
Yes, yes. Okay, and that's the only item, chair's report, old or new business. All right, seeing none. Motion adjourned. Adjourned. Thank you all. Meeting is adjourned at 8:55.
Thank you.